give a quick preface with this panel before we start. These two men, I'm sure, are absolutely knackered, given what you all put them through yesterday in the dealer room, and probably today as well. But the reason that we're doing this panel is because I mentioned this a little while ago in our opening ceremony. You know, there is people who have said, you know, we really want to hear from the dealers. We want to know what it's like to be involved in the toy business. And I thought, well, there's two people that are perfect to come and talk about this from different perspectives. So please, give a big, warm welcome to two very good friends, two men that I have known for more years than I care to count, Sven and Paul.
Hello.
Sit down. It's a seat. It's a seat. I was going to say, you won't have seen one of them in the dealer hall, will you? Right, okay. We're going to go into sort of the time machine almost here, because I have known you guys for, oh God, it's been 20 years now, which is a terrifying notion. But let's sort of, before we start talking about conventions and dealing at conventions and things like that, let's go right away back and just talk about like your earliest involvement, especially with Transformers. Sven, why don't you kick us off a little bit?
It's my mum's fault.
Right, okay, fair cool.
She basically, she got me an Optimus Prime. That was it. I was there for life, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And since then you've developed quite the Transformer, well, an Optimus Prime collection.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you can make space from all the Star Trek stuff, like it's, yeah, not too bad. Yeah. Paul, what about you?
As a child, I got into it because my grandfather passed away and he was a fireman, so my mum went out to buy me a fire engine toy, and she bought an Inferno just because she saw it as a fire engine toy.
Yeah.
And that was the start of it. Yeah. And then I got crazy into Transformers through my childhood.
And for you guys, what was it? Was it Marvel UK? Was it Sunbow? What was your aim?
Mine was definitely Marvel UK. I came through the comic.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But mine was the cartoon and TV show.
Yeah. That's great, actually. So we've got like a bit of split going on here. And so let's talk a little bit about the cartoon for a second for you, because at some point in your life you saw Transformers the movie and you never let that go.
No, I saw that in the cinema and was just blown away.
Yeah.
Just crazy blown away. And that stayed with me always, and as you know, I've picked up since quite a lot of stuff related to it.
Oh, hey, look, all I'm saying is it's the 40th anniversary in 2 years' time. I'm going to come knocking on your door one day.
Yeah, I've got signed in mine.
Yeah, I'll bet. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Sven, for you, just Marvel all the way, like...
Yeah, it was, I had the comic delivered home, like 7 million people did, and got completely into it. The backup strips in there certainly helped, but it was the British stories that really grabbed me. So starting with Man Ryan and going on from there.
Yeah. So, you know, that's where you guys started. You started love with Transformers. Where does one make the conscious decision to start buying and selling, especially when we're talking about late 90s, early 2000s, when I don't think the fandom like really properly existed yet, did it? Because this is long before Facebook and YouTube and all of that stuff.
Well, you say that, but Transmasters was going from the early 90s, and Matt Dallas had a shout out in the last issue of the G2 British comic, which resulted in an awful lot of people writing to him. And that was when people like James Roberts, Nick Roche, so on and so forth got involved with Transmasters. Transmasters were doing the fanzines there. So I have the dubious honour of having done a logo for a fanzine that James Roberts, Nick Roche, and Jack Lawrence were in, which is amazing.
Yeah. And was that the point where you started to put two and two together in regards to dealing and starting to sell, or did the conventions come first for you?
Well, the first thing that really happened from that was realising that one, I was in the middle of the country, and two, getting these people together in any other part of the country is going to be a lot more difficult than it is in Birmingham. So I essentially started having Transmasters meetings in Birmingham. It was just in my flat at the time. It was just like 9 of us running around Birmingham city centre and going to my flat. But it was from that that I started speaking to the Harmons and so on and so forth about Rockcon. Nothing eventually came of that, but that was where the idea for us called Icon came from. And the idea initially to get that off the drawing board was to have smaller meetings called auto assembly.
Yeah, so now I'm going to find out who knows their Transformers history a little bit. Has anybody been to an auto assembly? Yeah, so there's a few people here. Anybody who's not familiar with auto assembly? Yeah, okay. So, well, you can tell the story better than I can, I guess. Okay.
Well, the first auto assembly was actually 24 years ago now, which is, yeah, I know. It was March 2000. The idea literally was to have a meeting sort of I think it was every quarter was the original idea. But the second one didn't happen until October 2001 because I got viral meningitis. Which is like brilliant. And we had 15 pre-books for the first one, 30 people turned up. We had 30 pre-books for the second one, 60 people turned up. And we were already at the limit for the room we had. So it was just a case of, right, the next one we're going to have to do this in a hotel, it's going to have to be in a proper function suite, so on and so forth. And yeah, stuff from there.
Yeah. And I guess the important thing for people who've not been familiar with auto assembly is that this is the direct descendant of all of the work that you did. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask people to give Sven a massive round of applause because the work he did 20-something years ago, because we met at auto assembly, and the only reason that I am sat up on stage here was because the guy that used to do all of this comparing after you stopped doing it, people turned around and said, well, who's going to do the mic work? And I went, I'll do it. And that was literally it. Your hiring process was fantastic. But that's it, you know, every single one of the crew that puts this show together started at auto assembly. So it is a massive credit to you and the work that you did and the vision that you had, that we're all here today. Paul, when did you start getting involved in the convention scene?
Well, if I backtrack to when I started dealing, when G2 started, I started buying it as a collector, as an adult collector, which not a lot of people did then, and at the same time I started buying up G1 and I was buying up sealed G1. This was around 93, 94.
I'm not even going to ask about prices.
Oh, you can pick up sealed cars for £10 and sealed cassettes for £5 and it was crazy.
Am I right in thinking you went to Argos and picked everything that was in the triangle packaging?
Oh yeah, I got some of that, yeah, I've still got some of that. And then in 95, if anybody, I think anyone is old enough to remember, there used to be, this is pre-big internet, there used to be a newspaper called Exchange and Mart, and there was one called Loot. And there was an advert in Loot selling Transformers, and it was a guy in Bedford. And I went to his house, and I bought a huge G1 collection. I remember all this vividly. And it was £300, and it was a month's wages for me. And I remember buying it, putting it in the car, and thinking, oh, I've got to get through a month, and I've just spent the whole money on this. And then I sold it and doubled my money. I was like, oh. And that was it, and it just snowballed from there, because there was only really a couple of Transformers dealers back then. There was only a couple of us. I was only really the one that did all the different shows, and then the only place online really to buy and sell and trade was, there used to be a magazine, I don't know if it's still going, called Tomas, which was an American toy magazine, and they had a bulletin board page in the early 90s, mid-90s, and that's where we all started trading. And they asked for a username, and I put Paul from England or something, and then they changed the rule and said, no, it can't be your real name, it has to be a fantasy name, and you have to have a slogan. So I called myself Space Bridge, and I put the slogan, your gateway to toys or something. And that was, and then I did a little logo in Microsoft Paint. And it's this logo. It's the logo I've got nearly 30 years later, I'm still using. And that's where Space Bridge came from, and I've never really shaken the name Space Bridge. When I did the shop, I kept the name Space Bridge. And then I used to do a lot of, back then, before eBay was huge, there was a toy fair every single weekend. I mean, some years I did 50 toy fairs in a year. There was always a toy fair somewhere. And I first heard about you probably through Transmasters, and my first AA was the hotel one. I didn't do the very first one because that was Maz, because you only had one dealer per show in the beginning.
Yeah, I think you did the second one.
I did the second one, and then I've done every single one bar one.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. I think, like, for a lot of people, especially who are new to the fandom and, you know, younger, who've got the benefit of youth on their side, you know, back then, the late 90s, the early 2000s and things like that, it was such a weird time because you were discovering all of this stuff that you had no clue about. I remember, you're going to turn around and go, well, I've got no clue, but I remember vividly the very first conversation I ever had with you. And it was at probably the very first auto assembly I went to. And let me give you an idea of what's going on, right? You go in, and obviously, you know, Hitch, I've got to call you Hitch. Paul, yeah, everyone calls you Hitch. You know, is there, and suddenly you're seeing box Generation 1 toys, right? And your mind is absolutely blown because you're like, you know, as a kid, you just threw the packaging out and all of that. And I'm looking through this store. And at the back of your store, you're panicking now. I'm looking at the fear in your eyes where this story is going to go. There is this portable DVD player. And the screen is like that. It's smaller than your phone. And on it, he's just got cartoons playing. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, that's Generation 1. But I've never seen that episode. And the very first words I said to you were, what's that? And you went, that's Headmasters. And I'm like, what is Headmasters? And it turned out that, as far as I didn't know that there was 3 series that were made in Japan. And it like absolutely blew my mind. I was like, I am among my people. And we struck up quite a good relationship online, you know, in the early days and stuff. And I remember just, you know, silly little things where I think I sent him a message once on MSN, just going, do you know what I've just bought online? And I'm sure you're going, yeah, okay, what have you bought? Bought Black Zarak. And I remember Hitch just being like, alright, okay, cool. I was like, yeah, I got it for a really good deal. A couple of days later, postman knocks on the door, it's the little SCF Black Zarak. And I'm just like, it wasn't quite what I thought it was, but okay, cool. You know, which to be honest, SCF Black Zarak lasts longer than a real one, so, you know, who's laughing now 20 years later? So you guys started like working together like at the conventions and stuff like that. And so Sven, when did you start trading right off the bat with a convention, or was that all?
I was trading before Auto Assembly started. With the first Auto Assembly, I was basically not trading at it because I was trying to concentrate on doing it. And to be brutally honest, for all of the Auto Assemblies that I was at, or I was technically running, I handed over the table to someone else to run. Simply because it was more important to me to get the convention right. Because from 2003 onwards it was definitely a convention, rather than a meeting or anything like that. So it was more important to get that right, because eventually I wanted you to go to the weekend. Because of course 2003 was just one day, and so on and so forth. So yeah, dealing took a back seat. during events like that. And when I went to things like Transforce and other events, then I got the table properly and did it properly that way. But I got into it more than anything through trying to grow up and sell my stuff, which is stupid. Never do that. And then it was like things like the reissues started coming through, and it was a case of like the cheapest way for me to get something from Japan was to buy a case,
Right.
and just sell the rest to pay for mine. That was essentially the genesis of it.
Yeah, because we're talking like early 2000s, so we're talking about the box, the book style reissues of the Generation 1 figures and stuff like that. Which, yeah, I mean, nowadays, like, then those reissues themselves go for...
Well, there's a bigger gap between them and now than G1 and them. That's terrifying, but it's true.
Yeah, it really is, and you're right, yeah.
This is the thing, it's like when I started dealing and I was getting things like, we would discuss these one days with friends, and I was getting things like Thesaurus in and Leo Kaiser in. They were like 5 years old.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't compute that now, but they're like 5-year-old toys. That's like me now getting excited about Age of Extinction stuff. I was like, yeah, it's crazy.
No, that is true. And like, did you even know like what you were buying? Like, especially when you were import like some of the Japanese stuff.
In the beginning, I used to really focus on bringing in all the American exclusive G1. That's what a lot of people remember before. That I would have the table of a load of blasters, loads of swoops, loads of shockwaves, loads of Triptykons. I mean, there's some famous pictures of me at Transforce where I had 11 Fort Maxes lined up. There was like in a row. I had loads of them, and that's what a lot of people remember before back in that days. But I used to get a lot of flack back then for being expensive. Everyone said those were expensive. So many people now have come back to me and gone, "You weren't. I get it now." And then I really wasn't. And I posted a whole load of pictures of old photos, and there's pictures of my table at shows in the late 90s. And I've got sealed or cars for 50 quid, and I've got a sealed Leo Kaiser for 200, and that's like a £3,000-4,000 piece now. Yeah. And I took them all home because no one bought them.
Yeah, I remember like for many years, especially in the early online fandom and stuff, Fortress Maximus was like, you know, it was the grail piece, and it was, you know, even back then, early 2000s, it was a £500.
Yeah, it was normally about £500.
Yeah, £500. Yes.
There were an awful lot of people being teased by Hamleys at the time.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, what would a box Generation 1 Fortress Maximus set you back now?
What, now?
Yeah.
You could get an entry one, depending on condition, 700, and then a real clean 1,000.
Yeah. So it's crazy to think. So you're importing all of this stuff, but you're also buying collections.
Yeah, it's the collections. Like the big collections didn't really start until the 2000s, the mid-2000s, because people didn't sell. And what I found was, around that time, everyone was the sort of same age, because we were the generation that grew up with G1. And then around the late 90s, early 2000s, adult life hit a lot of people. They got married and they had kids, and that's when there was the first flux of collections being sold. And then it stopped, and then it started again, and that's how it goes. It tends to go in waves of generations, and I've got friends that have sold their entire collection to me twice, and then they're back here buying it again, because it's just different stages in their life. He sold it all when he went to college, and then bought it all back. Then he got married and sold it all again, and now he's buying it back again.
It's almost like you're providing a public service somewhere.
I wouldn't call it that.
So, Sven, with you with the collecting, how did you start? Were you said you were selling your stuff, but then, you know, now you obviously buy direct from Hasbro for a lot of your stuff.
Actually, no, I don't.
Oh, really?
I can't afford to buy from Hasbro.
We're about to get
Hasbro has a very bit of a order.
Oh,
yeah. It's and you have to take like most of what they do in action figures, for instance. So, me selling Star Wars stuff ain't gonna happen.
That's a lot of things people don't realise. Like the worst culprit of this is Lego. So if you open an account with Lego and say, I want to put a £25,000 order in, they're like, yeah, it's fine. And they have something called column ordering. So if there's a new Star Wars film coming out, I want to buy all the new Star Wars sets. They'll be like, fine, but you've got to have these Dupelos as well, and you've got to have these racers as well, and you've got to have these as well. If you want Star Wars, you have to order. So this is why you'll see so many independent shops with Lego that have all the stuff you want and all this random stuff. You're like, why are you even stocking this? Because I don't have a choice.
Wow. Okay, and that's why you're...
Yeah, I'm basically very reliant on wholesalers in the UK who, especially this year, have been very lucky to even see the stock.
So tell me, just for those that might not know, what's the difference between buying direct and buying through a wholesaler?
Okay, so your bigger boys like your Kapow, your Smiths, your so on and so forth, they buy directly from Hasbro. Guys who can't manage ridiculous numbers of thousands of pounds in one go, or to carry everything that Hasbro wants you to, you go to a wholesaler who gets the stock from Hasbro and then allows you to buy a single case or whatever up to a minimum. The minimum purchase is either 150 or 200 quid, something like that. So it's manageable, something that people can do, especially if you're doing this part-time. Yeah? But you're at the mercies of what they get. So, a perfect example of how you can get completely stitched up is Tom Connector. Yeah.
That was terrible for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely nasty.
So I've got some Tonkinators on my table now, in the hall, for £50 each. I paid, they 89 plus that. That's what we paid for them. Because it was going to be, this is going to be 150 quid, it's going to be 150 quid. And then in game, they were £29.99.
Yeah.
So people look at us and think, we're sharking them, it's like, we're not. And this happens with all sorts of toys. So like NECA do some really cheeky things. Like NECA with turtles, you'll have a row of 5 figures that are exactly the same size, exactly the same thing, but they'll charge us more for Shredder. There's no difference in the figure, but they charge us more. So when we charge more, they're like, you're only charging more because it's Shredder and everyone wants Shredder. No, they charge us more. For no reason whatsoever, just because they know people will want the set, so they charge us more for one. And then we look horrendous for asking more. So this is not the side, but I mean, not like I said, I don't tend to do an awful lot of new products because it's smaller margins and I tend to do, as people know, all second-hand stuff. So it's harder to get more work, but it's better profits.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to think of some of the other things that happened over the last few years. There was one thing you also happens is if you order from a wholesaler, say I want 3 cases of say Dead End. That was a particular one, Dead End on for Legacy. The price went up the day before they were shipped out, so we had to pay the new price, even though we'd ordered them beforehand. Because business to business, you don't have the consumer rights that you would have buying from business to consumer. So the price had literally gone up by, I think it was something like about £12 per case. So that's more than £1 a unit, because it's the case of 8 in there. So I'm wondering the reason why Dead Ends were really hard to get hold of in this country is because a lot of people cancelled their orders because they suddenly put the price up.
And they're doing that purely because there's a scarcity on the figure, or it's just they can and...
At that time it was during COVID, so it was shipping issues, there was the log jam in the Suez Canal, all that kind of stuff going on. So all the costs are going up. We've actually seen a very slight decrease in certain trade prices this year, but I'm literally talking like 50p a case. Because things have become a little easier. So, what you don't realise probably is that a deluxe toy, currently, according to one of my wholesalers, is recommended retail price, or suggested retail price, is £26.99.
26?
Yeah, but if you put them out of that, you ain't selling them.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, 12, there used to be 12 pounds.
You
It
get
used to be
stuck in your
14.
brain. It's
Yeah.
£10 deluxe, but yeah.
Yeah, it's, wow, okay. And let's talk a little bit about the dark times that took place a few years ago, because I think toys now, we saw a massive spike, I think, in production, didn't we, during COVID. But now it seems like if you want a toy, you've got to be in on that pre-order, because there is no guarantee.
And that's no guarantee either.
Right.
So, and one of the other, so like the guys like ID Toys and guys like Capel, they're brilliant. Please give them your business. It's people like Zavvi that cause massive issues, because they will go to Hasbro and NECA and say, we want X amount of units, and so they allocate them to Zavvi so no one else gets them. And then the thing's been out for 6 months, Zavvi never pick up the order, and then they turn around to NECA and say, oh no, we don't want them now. And and then no one wants them, no one gets them, and then that's Zavvi's pre-orders. So Zavvi you'll probably see in horror stories about Zavvi pre-orders being cancelled. It's because they didn't get enough orders.
Right.
So you're better off going with the guys here that know what they're getting. Because you'll see the Zavvi and it's like, oh, it's so cheap. It's like, but you may not get it. And they're the guys that are making it worse for us.
Didn't they do that with the Star Saber? Was it the Hasbro Star Saber, I want to say?
I can't remember. They do it with Hot Toys, and they do it with quite a few. Because the only new thing I get a lot of is NECA, so that's the one that I have the most exposure to. Sven has more exposure to sort of the Hasbro stuff.
I mean, with Zavvi, one of the things that they were involved with, just to digress slightly, there was a set of 4 Star Trek com badges that were on pre-order with them for a year and a half, and they didn't confirm their order, and that affected QMX so much they cancelled the line. Yeah.
Because Zavvi,
Yeah.
who, if anybody would, like a weird descendant of Virgin Megastar.
So this is the power that some toy lines can have. So if anyone remembers the Masters of the Universe 2000 line, that got cancelled 100% because of Toys R Us. Because Toys R Us was sick of opening a case of 12 figures, and they had 10 He-Mans and 2 other characters, and they didn't sell. So they said to Mattel, we are not stocking this line anymore, and that killed the whole line. Toys R Us saying that, which was an appropriate response to the cases they were getting, but that is the power that some of the toy stores going back can have.
It's interesting you mention that, because we've all heard the story that the 2000X He-Man show was cancelled because there was too many He-Mans. But no, it was the decision by Toys R Us not to carry it because of that reason.
Because of that, because everything was shelf warming. We don't want the 17th version of He-Man with armour, we want the other characters.
But there were problems when Toys R Us shelves were full of yellow bumblebees as well. It was just like sea of yellow, and it was just like, where's the other stuff? Like, isn't it? Right.
2007 to 2015, the dark times, yeah, exactly, where everything was yellow.
I mean, to give you an idea of some of the other things that have happened more recently, and this isn't Hasbro again, this is Trek stuff, but the Playmates action figure line for Star Trek has been cancelled completely. After, this is a classic, the Prodigy figures came out, 2 weeks later, Paramount Plus cancelled Prodigy.
Wow.
So you can't see Playmates going, oh, that was great.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's literally it, isn't it? It's the power that these stores have to be able to do that. And then that trickle-down effect just hits you.
Yeah.
And, as you say, it can cause a line to just get pulled out from under you.
Well, yeah, but we go back to the Tonknators. The reason why all of that stock hit again was because it arrived to Hasbro UK late, and the film had been put back here. Because Rise of the Beast was coming out, they needed to clear stock to get in Rise of the Beast stock.
And places like Game and Smith, so just to bore you, there's something called broker stock. So what happens with someone, big pieces in places in the US like Walmart ordering 10,000 of a toy, and they have a sale or return deal. So whatever stock they've got left goes back to Hasbro. Well, when it goes back to Hasbro, it's brand new sealed cases, but it's 6-month-old, 12-month-old product. That stuff then goes to a broker. Now these aren't toy brokers, these are brokers of anything. Cups, plates, speakers, whatever. So TK Maxx, TJ Maxx, their stock is 99% exclusive broker stock. It's all overstock from wherever they can get it, which is how they get the toys sometimes. And the Tonkinade was another one that there were so many that went into the broker channels. We don't really know what's going to end up in the broker channels, that's the thing. But that's where Smith's Toy Superstore buy from. And it's completely legitimate, you can buy from broker channels. But when they were head to head with Toys R Us, they were getting stuff for half the price that Toys R Us were, because Toys R Us did everything by the book and bought from Hasbro and bought directly from Lego and bought directly. Whereas Smith's, through Ireland, bought from the Far East, bought from brokers, and it was cheaper, which you can do. It's not a tax avoidance, it's just another way of buying, but the stuff works out cheaper.
And that's why you can find any Smiths right now and Toys R Us. Well, do you still have your Jeffrey costume?
I do still have a Jeffrey costume. I have the complete contents of a Toys R Us store.
Do you want to tell that story? Because if people haven't heard it before.
So, I've got a lot. I collect. A lot of people think I'm just a dealer. I do collect. I collect Transformers, I collect weird stuff, and I collect signage. And when they were stripping out the Toys R Us's, someone messaged me and said, look at this. And when they dismantled Milton Keynes Toys R Us, behind the displays were the original displays when the shop opened in '96. So there was Beast Wars displays, Polly Pocket, My Little Pony, Star Wars. And they said, do you want them? I'm like, yes. So we went up there and they said, you can take anything from the whole shop, but you have 3 hours. And there was 2 of us, angle grinders, running around this Toys R Us, cutting these displays up as quickly as we could and taking them. And then they said, wherever you can find, take. So I got the well, a couple of years ago, I had the Jeffrey costume here running around. So I've got the Jeffrey costume, I've got the signage, I've got the tills, I've got... If it wasn't screwed down, well, if it was screwed down, I still took it. But if any of you have ever been to my shop in the UK, I've got a big Toys R Us sign, light up sign in the shop.
I love that. Like when we were growing up, when you used to have the Toys R Us, on the Saturday mornings, where we run around with a trolley, grab whatever you can, and then you get it. That's just Paul as an adult just dismantling a shop. Like, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the shop as well. Time for promotion. You do all this training, and then what's it been now? 3 years?
What, the shop? No, the shops. So dealing in toys was always a sideline. I had a day job. So my day job was corporate sales. So I did corporate IT sales for 20 years. And how the shop came about was I decided to sell some of my personal collection. This is before the shop was thought about. And I sold some storyboards and scripts for Transformers the movie on eBay UK. And they went quite a lot. Does anyone remember that auction? No. The combined in, they went for 18,000. So I thought it was a joke, I thought it was a wind up, and then the guy messaged me and said, do you want me to send you a back payment? I'm like, yes. So, and he paid me. And I went and met up with this guy and he bought quite a lot of my collection, so I ended up with this pot of money. And I was like, ooh, let's open a shop. So I decided to open my first shop, which was very small, 4.5 years ago, I opened the shop. And it's not just Transformers, it's everything, but old toys. And I was open 6 weeks and then COVID, so I was closed for 6 months. And then the shop sort of picked up and I left my life as a salesman behind, the IT salesman, and focused on the shop. But foolishly, I thought the shop was going to be easy, it's going to be a DOS that's going to sit back, and I'm working 10 times harder at this than I was when I was working for someone. And then this year, the shop moved to a much bigger location. So my shop is on the south coast in the New Forest, a little town called New Milton. It's right between Southampton and Bournemouth. But I've got a much bigger shop now, I've got a 600 square foot shop, bang on the high street. And it's surreal for me because I can walk out from my shop and it's like it's Superdrug, Specsavers, KFC, Spacebridge. It's just, for me, that still freaks me out to this day because it's still that logo that I drew in Microsoft Paint. Yeah, but it's this big now and illuminated. It's just, every day I still look at that and I find it really strange.
Yeah, what's it like running a brick and mortar store in 2024? Because you go into a high street, and let's be honest.
So, pretty much the number one reason dealers, we have a shop, is not to sell stuff. It's for people to bring stuff in. That's why we have a storefront. Because I could sit at home and do it online and make the same money, but having a shop front, the stuff comes in. People clear out, they see you, they clear out their lofts, they bring stuff in, stuff comes to me. So most Saturdays, my shop is a trail, and it's not all gold, trust me. I get, every week there's a box of Wii games, you know, it's not good. That's the main reason we have a storefront, because people, my shop's in quite a touristy town, so we get the influx of tourists, and then they find the shop, and then on their next holiday they bring me a box of toys. But running the shop is fun. You can see I like talking. I like talking to people, I like telling stories, I like the rapport, but I like buying as well. I have much more fun buying stuff than selling stuff. So I like the stuff coming in, I get house clearances, I get loft clearances. I had one like 2 weeks ago, literally, I got into a loft that hadn't been touched in 30 years. It was literally packed in there, left. And I was the first one in there with the owners of the house, and that was wonderful. So that's what I really like about it.
Yeah. And so I guess, from your point of view of buying, as anything comes in through the door, and Sven, from your point of view of, keeping an eye on what the wholesalers have got and things like that, knowledge, how much time do you dedicate to just learning this stuff so that you're ready for? I see so many dealers try and start, but we've accumulated this knowledge over nearly 30 years. And it was like 5 years ago, I had to teach myself Pokemon. It's like, do you know what, I've got to get on Pokemon, I've got to improve my Pokemon knowledge. So I taught myself Pokemon from scratch. And it fried me. Whereas I've learned everything else as I went along and experienced, to try and learn a toy line, like a school subject almost, trying to learn Pokemon, that was really, really hard. And my wife jokes, she tried to work out how many toys that I've got memorised. So the name, the accessories, and it's over 20,000 across different toy lines that I can just reel off. I can find a random bit of plastic and know what it is.
In my case, I'm usually checking the suppliers' websites nightly. So I've got a full job as well. I work for AGK Birmingham, and I do IT and property and all sorts of things there, which we won't go there. Well, that was what that was like over COVID. But an example of this, a perfect example of this is, there's no tidal waves left in that dealer's room, is there? No. One of my wholesalers had one case of them in today, on a Sunday. It's coming to my house.
If you want to tidal wave, you know where to go now. Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, so it is incredibly difficult. And the problem is, often you deal with these wholesalers and you go, I'm going to need this line, and go, I don't know what that is. Or do you have the product number? So you go back through and you look at photographs from the events over in the States to try and find out the product number for, say, kit, the transforming kit that's coming. And that's the only way I could identify, because it was down as Retro Crossover 2 on the order sheets.
And you've got no idea what that is.
Yeah, they use code names on stuff as well. So like the Retro Star Wars line had like ridiculous code names on the side that had nothing to do with the product. Yet you're supposed to know that when you order it.
And it's bizarre things like when Earthrise was coming out, not Earthrise, sorry, Earthspark was coming out, Optimus Prime and Bumblebee were code named Mark and Grabo.
Mark and what?
Grabo.
Alright, yeah, sure, Mark.
What am I ordering?
Yeah. But I get NDAs and I understand the importance of keeping things secret, but not when you're trying to run a business and make money. Not just for you as a company, but for you guys as well.
One of the things I saw on my order sheet was cases of 2 of retro re-release 4, I think it was. And that's the Walmart exclusive 40th anniversary Optimus Prime's coming out. And I found it on the order sheet over here, and I was like, can I have a few cases of those please? And I worked out what it was. And that was only because, again, photographed from SDCC with the product involved.
Right, okay. And that's like a photograph of the barcode or a photograph of like...
Well, in this case, it's literally a nameplate that says Optimus Prime Walmart exclusive and then 285F, whatever.
Which of course you're only going to get if a fan takes a photograph of that, like, because Hasbro's never going to release a official doesn't what happens.
Because anybody who's buying directly from Hasbro isn't getting a choice about whether they can get them or not.
Yeah, but as long as they take Star Wars, G.I. Joe, and...
Yeah. But then you've also got the problem of, well, there's a slight problem called Hasbro Pulse at the moment.
And the worms.
Yeah. The core Dinobots from last year, the core series Dinobots last year, 3 of them, good luck finding them, as you probably all know. If you want a swoop or a snarl or a scar, up until very, very recently, it wasn't happening. And there wasn't enough stock in the country for the pre-orders that Kapow, In Demand and Hasbro Pulse had. Hasbro weren't supplying themselves with enough stock for their pre-orders.
And do we have any idea why that would happen? Is it again just a decline in the number of products that they're producing, or?
I have my suspicions.
Okay. Not that you want to share publicly.
Well, I mean, there's been an undercurrent of something since the early 90s with Hasbro UK and Hasbro USA. Because Hasbro UK went off and did some stuff on the road with Hasbro Europe that Hasbro USA had nothing to do with, which is Thunderclash, Pyro, etc., etc.
Oh, really?
Because they went round to get. They went to Hasbro Asia to talk to Takara.
Hasbro UK went to Hasbro Asia.
Yeah. That's how Everlord got in.
And excluded. That's how the 90s.
A lot of that came from Andy. So Andy Cousins had just passed.
Yeah.
I met him long before fandom discovered him, and he was sent boxes and boxes of stuff from Takara, because he still had it. He had like a Victory Saber, a Victory Leo, and an Overlord. And he was like, what do you want to sell? And he loved Overlord. He was like, yeah, we'll do that. And then he was going to do Leo Kaiser, but the reason we didn't get all 6 was because 2 would have to be a different price point than the other 4. So you can't have a shop open a box of figures, these are one price and these are another price. You can't do that. That's the same reason we never got Swoop, by the way. That's a different story. But the reason we never got Swoop in the UK was there was a law in the 80s regarding the weight of a toy to the box ratio. It was a really strange law. And because Swoop was lighter but in the same size box, it was deemed false advertising or whatever. And the store didn't want a case that these ones are this price, this one's a different price. So they said, we just won't have it. So that's why we never got Swoop.
I'm learning something here. I've got to tell you, like, wow, okay. I'm still trying to process that. That's so weird. So, and you think that's why the Hasbro Pulse is being shortchanged by its...
Pulse isn't owned by Hasbro. Pulse is a different company. Yeah. A lot of people don't realise that Pulse is its own company. But that's another story.
Hasbro Pulse isn't Hasbro.
No.
Makes sense to me, yeah?
To be honest, at one point I thought it was the hub, it was Sandy at one point, but I don't think it is.
So we don't know who Hasbro Pulse is?
No, we don't actually know who it is. There's this is a whole other story, but yeah,
yeah, because we've only got like 2 minutes.
Yeah, because I need to catch into the dealer. There'll be a crazy rush at the end, so
yeah.
2 minutes.
Well, wow, that's a bit of a bombshell, I guess, for you. Listen, I think we could talk for hours, and I'm probably going to track you 2 down at the bar tonight because I want answers. But listen, I think one of the things that comes out of this panel, which I hope everybody gets to take away from it, is the fact that the life
just so people know about it. Order Assembly 2009 almost had exclusive toys. Hasbro UK were okay with it. They were sorting it. We were going to get Grimlock, Masterpiece Grimlock.
As an exclusive?
Yeah, with the crown.
Which have you got
the crown, yeah?
No?
No, they got that idea from us. I also wanted to do a 3-pack of tapes, which would have been Tigertron as a tape. Obviously, these are all Ravage repaints. Tigertron, Cheetor, and Night Stalker.
I don't even know if you know this, but I nearly got an exclusive toy, kind of. When Armada Minicons came out, I was really good friends with the guys at Hasbro, and we were joking in the bar about getting an exclusive. We came up with this idea that they could do me a batch where they were going to put the bubble on the wrong side of the card and upside down and invert the contents. So you'd have it back, because they would just load the machine wrong, deliberately for me. So I'd have them backwards, and then we'd put like Cremsy stickers on it or something, and that was going to be like a Space exclusive. And then Hasbro Legal said no.
Yeah, it was literally that was the situation. Hasbro UK were quite happy to do Grimlock in this 3-pack, and Hasbro USA said no, pulled it. It even allowed them to get to the point where we were designing packaging. I've actually got sort of like the rough design of what it was going to be, which was going to be a very 1984 background for Grimlock, with the gridding and everything, and for the other 3. And yeah, Hasbro US just went no.
See, what is it they always say? It's a great idea until you tell somebody, and then it's theirs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think the takeaway from this panel is that, well, first of all, give these two a giant round of applause, because they've been supplying and helping UK customers for decades now. Again, we're helping to build this community, which we're all getting to be a part of today. And, you know, these guys and the guys in the trader hall, they are the lifeblood of collecting. So please, you know,
one thing just to add on that is we are quite often seen as being really sort of short-tempered, and you have to remember that we started normally at like 4 AM that day, and we're lugging boxes, and we don't get food, we don't get breaks, and I know I'm sometimes really short-tempered with people, and it's just because we're knackered. We're just absolutely, I know, we're out till 2 o'clock drinking, and then we come back to the table the next day. It's like, we are the first people in that hall, we are the last people out of that hall. We are always exhausted. But I always say to people, try and catch us, like, at the bar, catch someone. We always want to chat, we always want to have a little natter, but we're always got like one eye on stopping stuff getting stolen at the shows, at the table. We've always got one eye on things. We don't mean to be rude, we've got about 1,000 things going on out there at that moment.
And to be really honest, you see me at the end of any day, you'll realise why I'm not running events anymore.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Give Sven a big round of applause. I was going to call Paul, but it's. Give him a big round of applause. Before the end of the show, get over there, go give us some love. I really appreciate you taking the time. Right, everyone, we will be back in just a few minutes with Mr. David Kane. We'll be right back.